Hi, I'm Monique Murfield. I'm Director of the Center for Supply Chain Excellence and Associate Professor here at Miami University in Supply Chain and Operations Management. Today, I'm with Taylor McCallum from Estée Lauder. So, Taylor, welcome and thanks for being with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, can you just give everybody a little bit of an intro, background on yourself, maybe to get us started?
Yeah, sure thing. So Taylor McCallum, I've been with Estee Lauder Companies now for almost 6 years this summer. Time does fly. And then prior to that, I was with Procter and Gamble for 16 years of my career. So great company, both of them, learned a lot along the way. Early on in my career, I decided to move into supply chain. An opportunity came open, and I fell in love with that work and decided to make a career out of it. And so, fortunately, I only know corporate America, big companies. But what big companies have offered is the opportunity to work upstream, downstream, and continually move around, which I find really interesting, and the ability to build on each role as I move into something different.
Yeah,
So,
great. So we're calling these chain reaction chats. So that gives me a great segue. How have you seen kind of like some of the pieces working together, or maybe even if something goes wrong, like the chain reaction of that through the supply chain?
yeah. So I think what's interesting with supply chain is because we typically see end to end, and having seen, worked in manufacturing plants, everybody rightly, they're focused on their results. And so as a supply chain, we're closely tied to the business. So we're seeing what the end result is. Oh, I need to get these cases out the door to meet this order. But then what we see along the way is people just do their piece of it, and especially between two different silos, there's a leadership void. And so, as supply chain, what I found is we're really stepping in to make sure that baton is handed off. So, an example also within the scope in Lauder is we have project management for new program launches as we're doing new skincare products. And one of the things is maybe we're having difficulties running something on the line, and manufacturing says, oh no, this is a packaging issue. And packaging says, no, it's how manufacturing is doing it. And so no one feels accountable to move that through. And that's where we step in as supply chain to really make sure that linkage happens across to resolve the problem and drive it.
Mm-hmm.
So, I had a boss once say, we step into that leadership void. And so that's really, key.
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it. I was just talking to my students about integrated business planning today and getting everybody on the
Yeah.
same page. So that's a great. So tell us a little bit about, you're in an executive leadership role now, but thinking back over your career and, these students that are coming out as brand new supply chain operations grads, they're going into lots of different roles. I think there's key learnings that you can take from one sector definitely and apply it to others. Like, what are some of the big learnings that you can think about, like reflecting back on your career at this point?
Yeah, I think for me, and something that's always come up as a strength, is building relationships. And because supply chain is such an influencing organization, like usually our teams are not that big. So it's not, hey, if you have a big team, you can kind of mandate, get the work done, from that to play. But we have to do a lot of influencing with our peers, like even the manufacturing packaging example, they don't work for us. So it's like, how do we have that? And so I've always tried whenever I start in a new role, whatever it is, or even right out of school, like I built those relationships and really was intentional about getting to know the people and who my resources and contacts were. And I think the other thing is coming out is don't be afraid to fail, like fail fast and learn.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think a lot of people, what I've seen coming out, and even on my team, and I try and encourage them, it's the sitting back and waiting for someone to tell them exactly what to do. And it's like, no, don't be afraid to step in there. And if you hit a wall, that's fine because you probably learned something on the way that will come in handy later, and then move to something else. And so you quickly can learn a lot of stuff in a short period of time.
Yeah.
So relationships, and then don't worry about failing. I mean, obviously don't do something that's like a $2 million risk by yourself without getting buy-in, but there is a lot within the control if it's,
Yeah.
you can feel that way.
Yeah. And in supply chain, it's not if something's going to go wrong, it's a win, right?
Right.
And you got to be able to adapt.
Yes, exactly.
We're always telling our students that. Well, so today you're here for a couple things. You're chatting with our women in supply chain group and also speaking on a panel tonight. the Women Impacting Supply Chain Excellence group is still fairly new, and we're excited about having you chat with them. What thinking back, like, did you have any key student orgs or like groups that you were a part of like that when you were a student?
Yeah, so it was because I did this, my MBA.
Mm-hmm.
Undergrad, I was more tied in with the Electrical Engineering Honor Society. And then, but I've definitely pivoted in my career since
Mm-hmm.
then. But I think at work, and Procter and Gamble has great diversity and inclusion, groups.
Mm-hmm.
So does Estee Lauder Companies to be
Mm-hmm.
plugged in. And I think that's really helpful because at P&G or at Lauder, like I'm on the Origins brand, but there are multiple different brands. Same thing at P&G. I may be in planning on laundry, but there are other groups. And so having those women in supply chain, it really is a way to meet people that you wouldn't
Yeah.
interact with. And so that's been super helpful. I met one of my best friends through P&G in those days, and like we figured out a way to save $1 million in transportation because we were just friends and having a side conversation. I'm like,
Yeah.
wait, I can ship my Tide from that DC to this DC for free because you're already that's the supply warehouse for Mr. Clean dry pads.
Yeah.
So they're running trucks that were really light, and I'm like, oh, well, I
Yeah.
can throw some pallets on there.
Yeah.
So just those little things like that and having those combos, it's really cool.
Yeah, that's a great point for like students and young professionals to think about getting involved in those at companies, right? Employee groups in different areas that they might be interested in or affiliated with as a way to meet people, but also that like kind of informal side
Yeah.
conversation. A lot of work gets done and ideas get figured out there that maybe it wouldn't have happened in an email or on a Zoom
Right.
meeting, right? And the importance of like networking across the organization too.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. So looking back, like over maybe since your MBA and like you've been moving up into higher level positions at P&G and now Lauder, what big challenge have you seen maybe mid-career professionals struggle with, like making the jump as they move up in the organization, especially in supply chain?
Yeah, I think it is. And, this is still something that I continually challenge myself in working on too, because I am so tactical and good at diving into the weeds and solving problems and making it. And it's like, I'm not always the most patient, but I have to step back and like, and so I have to step back and be like, yes, I can do this faster than the person on my team, but I'm also stealing that opportunity for their growth if I just do it. And so I need to, even if it takes twice as long, like, okay, let's coach them along and really make myself do that. So I think that's the switch when you're moving to that executive level. It really is that bigger strategy piece. I still think it is good to know a little bit about the weeds because, again, you have to know how some things get done, at least for my personal thing. Like I do need to because I know how to ask certain questions when there are issues because I've done the weeds and in the work and think about things.
Yeah, you have to know how all the pieces fit together, even if you're not doing all the work. Right.
And what questions to ask. So
Yeah.
it's a lot of asking questions in supply chain to other people. That's how you kind of went, so we thought about this.
Yeah. And making that jump for being in the leadership position, like you said.
Yeah.
So. Awesome. Well, we're excited to hear more from you as you're here. And thanks so much for being with us today.
Thanks for the invite. Always great to come back to Oxford, and spend time at Farmer.
Yeah, and a beautiful day today.
It is
too.
gorgeous.